things back there.
Too kind. Anyway, pleasure to meet you, Dennis.
Pleasure to meet you. It's been, it's been a long time, but it's great to finally meet you in person. How you doing, Julian?
Kind of. Well, I'm alive. That's all I can say. That's all
That's
I'll ever say.
That's a good thing for all of us. So anyway, welcome to KVNA FM. Glad to have you here with us. I'm honored, actually.
Thank you. A pleasure to be here. And again, I'm jealous of looking behind you at your record collection and CD collection.
Yeah.
I was only just commenting in another interview that when we were going through the process of the artwork for the vinyl of the album, one of the days I received an email saying, oh yeah, we just want to finish up the CD. And I went, CD? I said, you've got to be kidding me. I literally, this is how well versed and in tune I am with today's world, of course, that I thought, I said, CD, who buys CDs anymore? But lo and behold, the funny thing was that I drive around in a convertible Mini. That's my go-to car. It's an old one, but it has a CD player. And I have to say, it was the best way of listening to music when you're running around and you want to hear the tracks and get a vibe, we all complained about how CDs sounded at one point, but I've got to say it sounded great in the car. It sounded really great,
and it sounds better than MP3s, that's for sure.
Yeah. So I now know that there's a lot of people out there that still really, really love their CDs, and I was really quite surprised, but okay, onwards and upwards,
Well, when you're in Arizona, you're welcome to come over and peruse the library here. And
wow. How many do you have, just out of curiosity, on the LP front?
I think I've got about 10,000.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, I'm impressed. I bow down to you. Okay.
Well, okay. I bow down to you, Julian.
I'll stop talking now. I'll stop talking. Go on.
No, we want you to talk. So we're really excited about your new album that's coming out. It's your first album in 11 years. And I remember when your first album came out in 1984, you were 21 years old. It was so great. What did it feel like to be thrown in the spotlight at such a young age?
Well, I didn't. It was very interesting because I went after it, I guess. I mean, initially I was signed because of the music, not because of my name. But once I was signed, I didn't realize the full extent to how I would be plunged into the world of madness. It was incredibly exciting. Of course, many people don't realize that. Still, that I certainly didn't grow up in a musical environment or background or have the knowledge of any music business. So, I grew up with my mum. We lived on a farm at one point. I helped with lambing season. Yeah, I mean, I'd never been anywhere near, any sort of media or publicity growing up. So that was really being thrown in the deep end. But, it was exciting and enjoyable for someone of that age.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say that at one point, I had a snippet of what being artist felt like, or seeing what Dad went through and the Beatles went through with the hysteria that came along with that. Because I remember when we were doing well in the charts and we were touring, I remember being in New York and literally could not get from the hotel door to the car because the sidewalk had about 2,000 people, 2,000 girls literally ripping you apart and your clothes apart. And I've got to say that scared the crap out of me, bejesus out of me. That was not fun. That was really quite terrifying. So I actually didn't enjoy that kind of madness of it, but certainly people appreciating your music when you're performing live was phenomenal. And I think that's probably why most young teenage boys get into the business in the first place, is having a few young girls screaming at them after doing about, what, 3.5 minutes of work, singing and playing a guitar. So, you know, that's where it all stemmed from, I believe, more than anything else.
So your first album in 11 years, Jude, is coming out next month.
Yeah.
What have you been doing these last 11 years? I know you've been keeping busy. Tell us about what you've been doing.
Yeah. Well, I've been following other pursuits, stuff that I've really had my eye on or been involved with to a lesser degree prior. I mean, the last thing I'm involved with documentary work. I had been since I did a film called The Whale Dreamers about the indigenous tribes back in the day. I can't even remember what year that film was, but I'd always had a keen eye on being involved to some degree with documentaries. The last one being Kiss the Ground on Netflix, which is all about regenerative soil, and that's now become a platform worldwide for making change. So these things are important. I think documentaries are a great way to get messages across without shoving it down their throats. I think that's one thing I've always been very careful of, is always presenting ideas and facts for conversation, but never shoving it down your throat, because even I'll walk away from that. But so there's been the documentaries, there's been the fine art photography, which has tied into the White Feather Foundation, because some of the campaigns that we do are around the world. So I take my camera with me and shoot situations and scenarios in real life, and put those into collections, and have toured those around the world. Children's books, you know, I wrote a trilogy of children's books, again for 3 to 5 year olds, because I was reminded of the times that you used to, when you were younger, when you would be read books by your parents or your grandparents, and that would be an informative time, of course, an informative age. And the idea behind the books was to start the conversation with the parents about, well, why don't they have clean water, or why is there plastic in the sea, or, you know, it's all about getting that conversation going. So and many more, you know, the list goes on. I think so I have about 5 jobs at the moment or something like that.
And then there's your philanthropy too. I mean, you've been doing a lot of projects.
Well, the White Feather Foundation, we do quite a few projects every year, whatever we can afford to bring together. I mean, White Feather Foundation literally lives off the donations from the public. So I always say thanks to, and most of our main donors are the general public in America, believe it or not. So thank you out there. You make a difference, you really do. I mean, we deal with, again, indigenous cultures and their culture and their land, because so many of them got kicked off their lands years ago. You know, I mean, the stories there are too many stories, but it's the same story all around the world on how these people have been treated. And these are the gatekeepers, the people with knowledge, that they're still here. We're not going to be if we keep going the way we're going. And I keep saying this, you know, it's been thousands of years. And have we learned nothing? No, we have not. We're more detrimental to our health and everybody else's health. But so yes, that health and education, of course, massive. Conservation in all various forms, and clean water. I think what we do generally is, you know, there are a lot of big charities in the world. We're not one of them, but they take on the bigger projects, and a lot slip through the cracks. You know, a lot of people don't get the attention or have the voice that they need in order to be helped. And we kind of try to, I guess, pick up the slack in those areas, and do what we can. And so far, we've been pretty successful in helping a lot of people out, and we continue. You know, also with everything that I do, a generous proportion, whether it's music, photography, or films, if I make any money, a generous proportion goes back into the White Feather Foundation so that we can keep that rolling. it's my purpose, maybe. So,
Well, thank
sorry.
you for
I'm
your
losing my
purpose.
mind. I'm days and days of interviews. I'm losing the plot now. So bear with me, Dennis. I'm sorry.
No worries. So about your new album, really
Yes,
love the songs I've heard from it, Jude.
thank you.
And it's being released in 3 weeks, as I mentioned. So
Yeah.
this new album inspires hope and unity. It's the songs I've heard from it so far. And tell us a little bit about the planning of this album.
The planning was that there was no planning. That was the plan. There was no plan. I mean, literally, it came about because, I thought the last album was my last. Everything Changes. I thought that was it. I've
Mhm.
done 30 years of music. I want to follow other pursuits. I want to have some freedom. I want to be able to breathe. A lot of the songs in the album are relevant, title-wise and lyrically speaking, because it was all about finding my own freedom. This album. I mean, how this all started, and I'll try and be brief. Was I came across several boxes of tapes. Starting one box even had the original reel-to-reel Fostex tapes of Volot and Too Late for Goodbyes, but the demo versions, and they weren't even covered. They were in a basement of my business manager. And I'm going, anyway, we were able to salvage the tapes through a process called baking. So any information that's on the tapes can be saved for the most part, if you're lucky. Fortunately, all the tapes that we did put through, and it was many, many formats of music, rather like the CD and vinyl and everything else.
Right.
This was DAT tapes to Elise's 12-track tapes to reel-to-reel tapes. Anyway, we were able to save the majority of everything that was on these tapes. And my dear friend Justin Clayton and I, who co-produced the album and who's been my longtime friend since 11 years old, we dove into the boxes, and the first song we came across was Every Little Moment. And we couldn't believe how well the quality had survived from, I mean, literally, it was like we recorded it last week.
Wow.
The tracks were in such great state, and Every Little Moment sounded so good. It was really a question of updating the production on it, really, and cleaning up the sound a bit more. Of course, back in the 80s and 90s, drum machines were a big favorite. So I felt that I'd like some humans playing on it. So I found a great drummer called Ash Sohn who helped with many of the tracks on the album. Got some other players to do keyboard. I think I re-sang just the choruses, just to give them a bit more oomph on that particular song. But the regular verses. So we, that track at the end of us playing around with it sounded great, and so I thought, let's keep going. So the next was Not One Night. Not One Night's lead vocal was done in I used to have a bungalow in the hills in Los Angeles, and in the guest bedroom, I had a demo machine. And the vocal that you hear on the album is the vocal I did in the demo 30 years ago in my guest bedroom. So, some things when you do them originally, you can't better them. And I'd re-recorded that song several times through different albums, but I could get close, but just sometimes the way you sing it, because it was, I wasn't under pressure. I was just in my room trying to deliver the right message and the right sentiment. So I left it. There may have been some interesting notes in there occasionally, but I thought, I prefer to have, honesty and emotion and a reality than some kind of false approach to any of this. So that's what we did. We cleaned these tracks up, and then there were other tracks on like 20 years ago and 10 years ago, and a couple of new ones on there, like Gaia, Save Me, Breathe and Stay were about 5 years, maybe a little longer, maybe 7 years ago. So these were just things that I'd done, and also they didn't have a home back then. For whatever reason, they just didn't sit right on either an album project or any other musical project. And so once I started having, a few of them, I started saying, well, I don't want them to be shelved, so or sit in a box. So at least maybe I could put them out as singles or EPs just to get them out there. Otherwise I'm going to be thinking that they're not meant to be sit in boxes. Art or music or whatever should be shared and seen. That's what my or listened to. So that's all I was going to do. But then I met Hartwig Massuch, who's the boss of BMG out of Berlin, and I got a message through two different friends on different sides of the world saying, if Julian ever wants to do some music again, please get in touch with me. And I thought, well, that's weird. One from Russia and one from America. And I'm going, what that? I have to check that out. So I was working with Leica cameras, and I had to go to an event in Berlin. And so I thought, well, maybe I should get in touch. So I found him on social media, sent him a private message saying, hi, Jules here. I heard you wanted to have a chat. Do you have time for lunch tomorrow? And I honestly didn't think he was going to respond. Lo and behold, later that day, message, would love to. So we met, and he kept going. We got on famously, and he kept going on about, Jules, you should do an album, and I'd love to support you properly the way you should have been supported, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, well, that's all very nice, but I've heard your kind before. That's why I went independent for 20 years. Right. But he was an honourable gentleman. I played him about 5 or 6 rough mixes of the album, and he flipped for it, and he said, Jules, you've got to. This is an album. Put it out. And I'm going, I still don't hear it, Hartwig. I'm still hearing EPs and singles. Anyway, after about 8, 9, 10, we both agreed. It had to sit in a particular arrangement, the album itself, for it to work for me as an album. But once that was structured and in place, I just went, yeah, okay. I hear it as an album now, and so I went, okay. It's a 1 album deal with BMG, and we'll see how we go. But so far, it's been a pleasure,
That's awesome. Well, the album comes out September 9th. We are so looking forward to hearing the whole album. We've heard a few songs from it. It's great. Lucky Ones sounds wonderful on the radio, and can't wait to play. I'm going to play it here for you now for our listeners.
Thank you.
And I know you need to run. You got a schedule to keep.
Oh my! I can't even. I'm blubber. I can't even talk anymore. This is how far gone I am.
I could talk to you all day, Julian. I'd love to hear all kinds of stories.
Well, the thing, see how I tend to operate is you just ask me one question, and I just don't stop talking until I fall over. So I'm just happy you stopped me in time, really.
Okay. Well, thank you for stopping by here at KVNA, Jules, Jude, however we call you. And
indeed.
We'll look forward to seeing you again soon. And congratulations on the new album.
Thank you very much, Dennis.
All right. Great.
Cheers. Thank you very, very much.
Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye.